found a funk song that promised immortality. It's terrifying. The humid Detroit air hung heavy, thick with the ghosts of industry and forgotten dreams. Just like the air, I felt stagnant, suffocated. Another lukewarm beer at the shelter, another night chasing shadows in the city's underbelly. Music journalism wasn't exactly paying the bills, and the gnawing emptiness left by my dad's passing hadn't faded, just become a dull ache. Mr. Davies, my editor, bless his soul, tossed me a bone. Funk music history bell. Local angle. Something about Detroit's unsung heroes. He winked, the kind of wink that meant find something interesting or find another gig. That's how I ended up sweating in Elias Vance's record store, Vinyl Remains. The place smelled of dust, mildew, and forgotten hopes. Elias, a man who looked older than the building, peered at me over his spectacles. He was a wisp of a man swallowed by an oversized cardigan, his eyes holding the knowing glint of someone who'd seen too much. Funk, eh? He rasped, his voice like sandpaper. Detroit funk ain't just Parliament or Funkadelic, son. There's deeper grooves, darker secrets. He shuffled through stacks of vinyl, a graveyard of forgotten artists. Then he stopped, his fingers hovering over a plain, unmarked sleeve. Heard of The Groove Eternal? He asked, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I shook my head. Never heard of it. Elias hesitated, his gaze flickering to the shadows in the corner. Legend says it was an experiment. A way to cheat death. Never released. Too potent. He pulled out the record. It was heavily damaged, scratched and warped, like it had been through a war. The label was blank. Don't listen to it, son, Elias said, his voice surprisingly firm. Some things are best left buried. He looked genuinely scared. Naturally, I ignored him. What's a music journalist to do? The lure of the unknown, the promise of a story, the desperate hope for something to fill the void. It was too much to resist. I borrowed it, promising to return. Back in my cramped apartment, the record player whirred to life. The needle dropped, and the room filled with a sound I'd never heard before. It was funk, but different. Raw, visceral, with a hypnotic bass line that burrowed deep into my bones. The vocals, distorted and layered, sounded like a choir of souls chanting in ecstasy. It was captivating, intoxicating. I listened to it for hours, lost in the groove. The next day, I felt incredible. Energized, like I hadn't slept in years. My writing flowed effortlessly, the words practically leaping onto the page. I felt younger. Chloe, my girlfriend, a med student with a healthy dose of skepticism, raised an eyebrow. You seem different, she said, poking at her salad. Did you finally quit drinking coffee? Something like that, I replied, grinning. I didn't tell her about the record. I didn't want to break the spell. But the spell started to crack. The nights were filled with vivid nightmares, unsettling images of distorted faces and shadowy figures dancing in the dark. During the day, I'd catch glimpses of movement in the periphery, fleeting shadows that vanished when I turned to look. I started hearing the song everywhere. In the hum of the refrigerator, the rumble of the bus, the distant sirens. My research into the Groove Eternal yielded nothing official, just whispers and rumors. A series of disappearances in the 70s, all connected to a small, underground funk scene, a forgotten band obsessed with immortality, a ritual gone wrong. Chloe grew increasingly worried. You're not sleeping, you're paranoid, and you keep muttering about funk demons, she said, her voice laced with concern. Maybe you should see someone. I brushed her off, convinced I was just stressed. But the shadows were growing bolder, the whispers louder. One night, I saw them clearly. Grotesque figures with elongated limbs and blank, staring eyes, swaying to the rhythm of an unheard song. They were in my apartment, lurking in the corners, drawn to the music that pulsed within me. I tried to destroy the record. I smashed it against the wall, stomped on it, even tried to burn it. But it wouldn't break. It remained stubbornly intact, the music still playing, a faint, mocking laugh echoing in the grooves. Desperate, I went back to Elias. He looked even more frail, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. I told you, son, he said, his voice barely a whisper. It doesn't let go easily. What is it? I pleaded. What's happening to me? He hesitated, then sighed. They sought eternal life through the music. to capture the groove so completely that it transcended death. But they opened a door they couldn't close. The music, it feeds on your soul, your identity. It promises immortality, but it delivers only servitude. Servitude to what? Elias's eyes widened in fear. To the rhythm, to the groove eternal. To them, he pointed to the shadows behind me. I turned, and the grotesque figures were there, closer than before, their blank eyes fixed on me. Their limbs swayed in a sickening parody of dance. "The funk servants," Elias whispered. They lunged. I managed to slam the door in their faces, Elias cowering behind me. "There's only one way to stop it," Elias said, his voice trembling. "You have to silence the music within you." Easier said than done. The song was in my blood, my bones, my brain. It was a constant, pulsing beat that threatened to overwhelm me. Chloe, bless her practical heart, refused to believe in funk demons. She took me to Dr. Albright, a neurologist who ran a battery of tests. Stress, exhaustion, possible sleep deprivation was his diagnosis. Avoid loud music, get some rest. I didn't tell him about the shadowy figures, he'd have me committed. But the figures were real. I saw them on the street, in the reflection of windows, even in Chloe's eyes, for a fleeting moment. The song was spreading, infecting others, turning them into grotesque puppets of the groove eternal. Detective Ray Johnson, a world-weary cop who'd seen too much of Detroit's underbelly, was initially dismissive of my claims. "Funk demons, huh? Lay off the sauce, kid." But when people started disappearing, replaced by vacant-eyed individuals with an unnatural rhythm to their movements, he started to listen. He found the connection. A string of missing persons, all last seen at local music venues, all exhibiting strange rhythmic tics. He found the record store, vinyl remains, and Elias, who, after some prodding, confirmed my story. The climax came at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The funk servants had gathered, a grotesque congregation of the damned, swaying to the unheard music. They were preparing to initiate a new wave of converts, to spread the groove eternal further. Elias, Chloe, Detective Johnson, and I stormed the warehouse. It was a scene from a nightmare. The distorted figures, the pulsating darkness, the overwhelming sense of dread. Elias knew something more than he let on. He revealed that the only way to defeat them was to disrupt the source of the music, the original ritual, a specific arrangement of instruments blessed with a dark rhythm. He knew the arrangement and guided us through a counter-ritual, hoping to shatter the binding. The funk servants attacked. Detective Johnson held them off with a shotgun. Chloe administered makeshift tranquilizers, while Elias and I struggled to rearrange the instruments. The music within me roared, threatening to consume me. I felt myself losing control, my body swaying to the rhythm of the groove eternal. But Chloe, she grabbed my face, her eyes filled with tears. "Fight it, Marcus. You're stronger than this." Her words, her touch, snapped me back. I focused on the counter-ritual, pushing back against the overwhelming force of the music. The warehouse shook. The air crackled with energy. The funk servants screamed, their forms flickering and dissolving. Finally, we completed the counter-ritual. A wave of silence washed over the warehouse. The shadowy figures vanished. The music within me faded, leaving behind a hollow ache. Elias collapsed, his body finally giving out after decades of harboring a terrible secret. Detective Johnson, covered in sweat and grime, looked at me with a newfound respect. Chloe held me tight, her body trembling. We destroyed the instruments, burned the warehouse to the ground. The immediate threat was gone. But the song, I can still hear it sometimes. A faint, rhythmic pulse in the back of my mind. A reminder of what I'd seen, what I'd almost become. I try to avoid music now. The silence is safer. One night, I was walking down the street and heard a faint rhythm coming from a nightclub. It sounded familiar. I dismissed it as paranoia, but then a young man, walking past me, started to sway slightly, an unnatural glint in his eye. He smiled. I quickened my pace, a cold sweat breaking out on my skin. The groove eternal. It never truly disappears. It just waits for the right moment, the right ear, the right soul to infect, and it will keep going.